tell you, this book is about the MP's expenses scandal. And I didn't really write it. It wrote itself. I started it on one cruise ship in May last year, and I finished it on another in August. And because I was myself an MP once, and I served on the Standards and Privileges Committee, so I had a little bit of insight, I hope. But the sad thing is, I'm actually quite proud of it. It's my 5th and last book, but every time I write a book, I say it's going to be the last one. But it wasn't actually the title I wanted, because you consider this is about our honourable and right honourable members. So many of them being caught doing things that were strictly speaking against the rules, except that they made the rules. The title that I wanted for it was Swindler's List. But my publisher said that suggested a bad joke about the Holocaust. I don't think it did, so we ended up with something else. I'm going to rattle on for about 35 minutes, and then it's your turn. And you can ask me about anything. You can ask me, but you won't believe it, there's an Afghan element in here. I visit Afghanistan occasionally. The job I do for UNICEF is the best job I ever had in my entire life. It's a bearing witness job, much like being a television journalist, except you get much better access because you're wearing a sort of UN hat. And I'm just out of Yemen. I was there 5 weeks ago. And before that, Somalia and Darfur and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And you get the picture here that UNICEF always had what they call goodwill ambassadors. They started with Danny Kaye and Audrey Hepburn. But times and tastes change, and now they have Robbie Williams and David Beckham. But they can't send them to war zones, so they send me. I call myself the expendable ambassador. And I've been doing it for 9 years. And it's paid. They paid me $1 US because I went to Afghanistan to write a report about the condition of children. This was a couple of years ago. And for insurance reasons, I had to have a contract, and to have a contract I had to be paid. So I didn't spend the dollar, I friended it. And I get most friends, they have such wonderful people working all over the world. And I never had such an interesting time in my entire life. However, some of you may remember, I'm a political footnote. I don't know if you remember a guy called Neil Hamilton, anybody? Well, I'd never heard of him when I was still a television reporter in April. I had heard of him, but I hadn't heard of Christine. But I found out about Christine. I was winding down a fairly lengthy career with the BBC. I've been with the BBC for 33 years. Nearly all the time doing war zones. I was the BBC correspondent in Washington during that amazing political honeymoon between Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. And it was said of, and every year for 8 years, Margaret Thatcher would come over and be received with all honour and dignity on the South Lawn of the White House. And then she went for talks in the Oval Office, and it was said at the time that first of all she told Ronald Reagan what she thought, and then she told him what he thought. And I was there, and I saw it all. But then the Berlin Wall came down, and my bosses said, "You're wasting your time in Washington. Go to Berlin and report the triumph of democracy in the emerging countries of Eastern Europe." And for the next 6 years, I did nothing but wars, starting with Gulf War I, which began with the invasion of Kuwait in August 1990. And I think I can claim to have been the first embedded reporter. I was with a wonderful bunch of cavalry, people called the Queen's Royal Irish Hussars, or QRIH, to their many rivals, the queerest regiment in history. But it was a privilege. And then, of course, Yugoslavia started falling apart. And first of all, there was the war in Croatia. It started in June 1991 and finished, or went into remission in January 92, but of course there were further attacks in 94. And following that, the war in Bosnia, which started in April 1992 and ran on till November 1995. These two were the first wars in Europe in 45 years. So they were consequential. And I won't bore you with it now, but I can draw a sequence of chain of effect. Things that didn't happen because other things happened, but would not have happened if other things hadn't happened. Which starts with the recognition of Croatia by the then European community at the end of 91, and it goes through to the Bosnian War. The Bosnian War was inevitable after that, and into the Bosnian War were these the Mujahideen brigade started arriving, and and two of the 9/11 hijackers in their martyrdom videos quoted Bosnia as their reason for signing on. So when I say these wars are consequential, they are. And I think it's very important now that we live in a relative peace and freedom. I'm not sure we live in as much prosperity as we did, but we live in tremendous peace and freedom, and we tend to take it for granted.